Welcome back to the channel. My name is Brad, and today we're going to go through the NEOS high income ETFs, look at the performance over the reasonable amount of time, and give you some predictions of the new boosted fund, talk about the Ethereum fund. Lots to cover today. If that's what you're looking for, stick around. So my name is Brad, and I've been retired now for over a year, and I've been doing this research on ETFs to share with you. And again, none of this is financial advice or any other advice. It is just Brad out on the internet. But let's dig right into it. We have NEOS with a bunch of funds. Let's just go down the list in case you don't know them all. There's SPYI, there's QQQI, there's IWMI, there's the new international fund, NEHI, there is QQQH, there is SPYH, there is BTCI, there is IYRI, and there's the gold fund, IAUI, all from NEOS. They have a whole suite of high income funds. And if you look down the list, it's 12%, 14%, 14%, almost 10, 9, almost 8, 28%, 11%, and almost 13% in their distributions. And that is pretty darn good. If I look at the inflows to NEOS for the last 3 years, you notice that they had some up and downs in the beginning, a couple red months. But when we start looking over the last 3 years, we see their AUM grow over time. And it's really has grown a lot. Starting in 2025, you really see large inflows to their AUM. And this is as NEOS as a complete company. NEOS is going to come out with a new fund on Ethereum. When are they going to come out with it? December 3rd is the date that it's going to be launched. Expect a video from me on December 3rd or December 4th, depending on my time period. I will look at the calls, give you a prediction of what the actual distribution rates are going to be, and we'll take a little closer look at this new fund, NEHI, from NEOS. NEOS is also going to come out with a bunch of boosted funds. That's what they're calling them. We have the Ethereum fund, boosted funds, master limited partnership, a long and short fund, all coming out. But the government has been shut down, so everything's been delayed. But what is Brad's predictions for these new funds to be coming out? Brad is predicting somewhere before Christmas, the boosted funds will be out. The master limited partnership will probably slip in between Christmas and right after New Year's. And the NEOS long and short fund, I'm going to say that's going to be first of next year. That is just my prediction, and this is all due to the SEC being shut down. And you can see how I kind of came up with that. I took some dates and saw how long I've been waiting. So maybe we'll get the boosted funds before Christmas. Maybe get that master limited partnership before the first of the year, and the long short will be next year probably. If I look at NEOS and say, how did they end up last month? This is the end of the month and how they go ahead and roll their calls. If you're not familiar with this, they rate their calls 7 weeks in advance. And in about 3 weeks before they expire, they roll them. Now, they pay us the complete revenue from the calls, even though when they roll them, they're not worthless. It is just how their mechanism is put in place. They seem to have pretty good positive NAV, not the best NAV in the world, but positive NAV, just to say the least. And this is in an up market, but in a down market, you're going to see the NAV go down because the index is going down. But let's go ahead and take a look at these and look at where they ended up at the end of November. So SPYI, they finished 1.8 out of the money on their first call and just over 3% for their second call. QQQI, 4% and 6%. IWMI, 1.5, 3.5 out of the money. Bitcoin really went down, it finished 30% out of the money and 37% out of the money. Their REIT fund, IYRI, hey, it finished just out of the money. And their gold fund, of course, went through both of their strikes. But we'll get into this. We'll look at that a little more in detail. Now, their new international fund, I don't have that on a chart because it's all manual, but I can tell you their calls are 1.4% of the money for the first one, and the second one is 2.4% out of the money, just like they normally do, and that pretty much matches last month on a percentage out of the money those calls have been written. And since we're talking about these, new international fund is performing just a little worse than SPY this current time, but it's only had a few months. We're going to wait to hold judgment on it, but it's paying you just over 9%, and that is that new international fund. Where's the new calls for this month going into December? Is it Merry Christmas or, oh, we're going to be a Grinch? Let's go ahead and bring these up and show what everybody wants to know. Where's the calls? So on SPYI, they wrote 1.6 out, 2.9, and the percentage changed, just to give you an indication, that was the last day of trading and for the price of SPYI and the index. So you can see that they pretty much were matching the indexes a lot of those days. QQQI, hey, just over 2% and almost 4%. And that's pretty close to what they do every single month. At least that's close to where I have been tracking them. So on the Russell, IWMI is 2.3 and 4.3. On Bitcoin, and I can confirm this, it is out of the money 8.6% and 14%. That is a little more than normal for the second call, but that is where their calls are at. Now, IYRI, they're again 1.1 out and 2%, and that's on REITs, and it's paying about 11%. And you have their gold fund, 2.3 and 4.6% out of the money, and that's a little bit more than they did last month on out of the moneyness on their calls. So it's going to be interesting to see how these play out this month. Well, let's jump into SPYI. And how does it compare to the others out there? So SPYI, since 8/30/2022, it's up 56% total returns. XYLD is up 35%, JEPI's up 32%, Devo is up 49%, and SPY is up 77%. Just to give you where they are, but look at the distribution rates. SPY's been doing about that 12%, XYLD's doing about 12%, JEPI's doing about 7%, and Devo does about 5%. And this is off their website, just in case you want to go check it out. I wanted to know assets under management, how they have been growing in SPYI. So I went out and looked, and I see that AUM has been growing slowly over time and getting a lot bigger candles here and there on SPYI for their assets under management. And I see 1 year net inflows of being $3.7 billion into the fund. Congratulations, NEOS. Also, there's an index on this buy right strategy, and bringing this up, you can see NEOS consistently has been beating this index over a period of time. So congratulations there also. SPYI does a better job than the actual index. How about distributions? Distributions have been very consistent and steady, up and down. I mean, I went through April, and April was down a little bit, but also the market was down a little bit. They have been very consistent in their distributions from the beginning. So looking at their calls, you can see that last month they finished below, but the month before they finished one in the money, one out of the money. So let's see where they end up this month. But you can look at the chart. What you're going to have is S&P 500 has to make new all-time highs for them to hit their strikes. We'll see if that happens. On QQQI, we're going to do the same thing. QQQI is up 42% on total returns. JEPQ is up 36%, and QYLD is up 21.9%. But you can look at the distribution rates. QQQI is 14%, and you can see the Qs being there at 48% in total returns. That is right off their website, just like the last one. Distributions for QQQI have been a little more variant than SPYI. But then again, the NASDAQ has a little more volatility to it than SPY. So that makes sense. You'll also notice that the distributions are slightly higher in QQQI than in SPYI. If I put this on a chart, you'll notice that the first strike is right at new all-time highs for the NASDAQ, and the second strike is above new all-time highs. So let's see if we get a new all-time high on the NASDAQ this month, or if not. I'm going to say it might be a Christmas present, and we might touch it on the first one, but I don't know if we'll go through the second one. On the Russell 2000, IWMI, they're paying right around that 14.6%. Keeping in mind, most of their expense ratios are 0.68. You can always look those up right on their website. For IWMI, you can see that I've tracked this for a long time, and there's times that they go through their calls, there's times that they don't go through their calls, but always remember, with all their funds, they do not write on 100% of the underlying. It ranges from 60% to about 75% on the underlying. So right now, you can see where the Russell is, and we'll see if the Russell makes a comeback, because normally the Russell does very good in low environment for the Fed funds rate. At least that's what has happened in the past. IWMI distributions, well, you can take a look at those across the chart. Again, sitting there right around 50 cents, sometimes a little bit more, sometimes just a little bit less when the market is down, but they have been fairly consistent over the whole entire time that the fund has been out. We're now going to look at the equity hedged funds. These have hedges on them. First one that we're going to look at is QQQH, right there at 9%. If you didn't know, this is the old NEOS fund that they actually acquired, did a reverse split to bring the price up. The distribution is right now right around that 9%. Again, the expense ratio is 0.68, and we're going to look at their calls. First thing you notice is there's only one line across the top, and then there's a blue box. One line across the top is actually their calls, and that's where you'll get limited. So at the new all-time high, you're going to start getting limited. It's only going to go up about 25% after that. But you notice the blue box, and you notice that last month we dropped into the blue box but came out of the blue box. That's your protection. So there's two puts. There's one at the top that they bought. There's one at the bottom that they sold. And anytime that you're inside the blue box, you have downside protection. Outside of the box, you do not. SPYH is a newer fund, and SPYH is paying right around 8%, has that expense ratio of 0.68, and we're going to quickly look at their calls. Again, when you look at their calls, the S&P 500 is going to have to make a new all-time high to go through the first call, but you notice that their puts, just like on QQQH, top of the box is where the protection starts, the bottom of the box is where the protection ends, and you notice that this month the box is a whole lot bigger, and we'll see if it goes down to the box, but I just don't think it will. I think that's right there where the last two drops have been. But we'll see how this plays out in the month of December. Now we're going to get into the REITs. IYRI pays about 11%. It really has been going sideways. I mean, the last time I checked the price, it's about $50, right around the same price that it started at. The expense ratio is 0.68, pays you that 11%, but really has had zero NAV erosion since it started, and it's really been trading sideways. If I look at the distributions, their distributions have been very steady, right around that 11%. Can't complain about that. And you get them monthly. If I look at their calls, hey, very rarely do they finish in the money, but you can see where they wrote their calls, and we have to go up to $98 for it to actually get into the calls. A lot of times it touches it, then it goes down, but really the actual REITs have been trading sideways for a while now. Now we have the NEOS Gold Fund. It almost pays 13%, 12.9. The expense ratio is a little bit higher at 0.78. The net inflows for this fund, since basically when it started, has been positive. There's not any really red days there that money has been flowing out of the fund. If I look at their calls, well, gold has been on a major run, and it's gone through their strikes pretty much almost every single month. But the price continues to appreciate because NEOS does not write on 100% of the underlying assets, which allows the price to appreciate even as the price of gold goes upwards. Maybe one day we'll get a sideways market, and when that happens, NEOS will do extremely well. But until then, hey, let's continue to collect those distributions and hope that gold goes up a little bit more. And I'm saying with the debasement trade, it will probably continue to go up for the next year or so. BTCI has an expense ratio of 0.98. It's been paying right around that 28% on an annualized basis, just over 2% per month. And they rarely go through their calls, but they have a couple times. But let's go ahead and take a look at this on a total returns chart. They have done fairly well in matching the price of Bitcoin and IBIT. Not exactly beating it, but right now, if I look at BTCI total returns, 27% versus Bitcoin at 33% and IBIT at 31.98%, you get a good feeling of what BTCI actually is. Looking at the last year, and I look at inflows into BTCI, well, I see pretty much just green. Money coming in with no money coming out. Personally, I hold BTCI. It's currently down for me, but I continue to get those distributions, take my 8% on cost, and I'm saving up to reinvest in that one day when it falls a little bit more. And if it doesn't fall, then I'll just be able to continue to collect my 8% perpetually going forward. When I look at this month's call, well, this month's call is a lot lower than the other months. So here we are. We're up against Bitcoin. Will we have a rally at the end of the year? Their calls are fairly low. We'll see how this plays out. But remember, they don't write on 100% of the underlying. So even if it goes through the calls, we'll still see about right around that 60% or 40% actually in movement of the price going up if it goes through their calls. If I look at their distributions, hey, their distributions have been all over the place, but it's been slightly more than $1 ever since the fund came out. But that's all due to the price of the actual fund. If it's priced low, then you're going to get lower distributions. If it's priced higher, you're going to get higher distributions. That is a complete review of NEOS High Income. If you enjoyed this content, hit the like and subscribe. And don't forget all the Cyber Monday actual specials that are going on. Snowball, TradingView, or Seeking Alpha. Links down below. Until next time, God bless.